The late, great Ringo Starr, drummer for the Beatles, is still a symbol of love, peace, and classic rock and roll. But Ringo still has an unexpected worry about the future, even if the band's fame has never faded on a global scale. One of the most legendary bands of all time, the Beatles, may be on the verge of disappearing into obscurity. At the age of 84, Ringo Starr worries that the cultural influence of the Beatles could be at risk due to shifting musical tastes, changing listening habits, and the difficulties of being relevant to newer generations. Ringo Starr has voiced his dismay at the dizzying pace of modern cultural and musical trends, even as the Beatles maintain their status as one of the all-time great bands. In this day and age of diminishing attention spans, complete albums are frequently eclipsed by viral hits, and streaming platforms rule the music industry. A lot has changed in the music industry since the Beatles were at the top of their game. A problem that Ringo perceives is that the Beatles aren't as widely acknowledged as a revolutionary band anymore. Their older albums have a more analog sound and a slower tempo, which can turn off younger listeners used to more contemporary production techniques and digital platforms. The Beatles made music as whole, comprehensive pieces meant to be heard in its entirety, in stark contrast to the current trend of singles over albums, which is fueled by sites like TikTok and Spotify. The emphasis is on individual tracks. Keeping the band's legacy alive calls for more than simply reminiscing, and Ringo has admitted as much. He thinks there should be new ways to honor the band's heritage. While acknowledging that these criticisms are in the minority, he made the observation in an interview with Rolling Stone that they make people worry about the band's future unless they do anything to make its continuous importance known. There is some truth to Ringo's concerns. Unless their music is updated for new platforms or included in current cultural discourses, the Beatles' music will remain stuck in the past in a world devoid of social media, streaming, and a very different music industry. There is a danger that subsequent generations will find the band's colossal achievements difficult to access or understand. Even though the music industry is changing at a dizzying rate, efforts are underway to preserve the Beatles' place in music and popular culture. Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney have been instrumental in many of these initiatives, which aim to keep the band's music current through the use of new media and partnerships. New films and remastered recordings that offer an intimate glimpse into the Beatles' approach have been released in recent years, and this is one of the most significant advancements. Both longtime and new Beatles fans were blown away by Peter Jackson's 2021 documentary, The Beatles Get Back. A newfound admiration for the band's brilliance was introduced by the series, which featured never-before-seen studio footage and illuminated their working relationship. Ringo saw the project as a chance to put to rest long-held misconceptions regarding the tumultuous years the Beatles spent together. Ultimately, he said in an interview with USA Today, people are constantly looking for the negative. The love, excitement, and fun we shared while making music was evident in this though. Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr have both used live performances, in addition to retrospectives, to engage with fans of all ages. Starting in 1989, Ringo's all-star band tours have been bringing together famous musicians to play Beatles songs and their own hits, and they still manage to attract enormous audiences. In addition to being a joyous occasion, these concerts bridge generations by introducing new generations to the music of the Beatles through live performances. The whole Beatles discography has also been re-released on streaming services after being digitally enhanced to suit contemporary tastes in music. Abbey Road, Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and Sgt. Were all remastered to an even higher degree of clarity, allowing them to sonically compete with modern music. The inventive marketing efforts that have followed these albums have used social media interaction and limited edition vinyl pressings to appeal to both seasoned listeners and newer, more inquisitive admirers. Paul McCartney has worked with modern musicians such as Rihanna and Kanye West, blending musical genres in a manner that quietly maintains the impact of the Beatles. The plan to stay current is to engage with the modern music industry, which Ringo agrees with, even though his own career has taken a more classic rock approach. Ringo has been forthright about the limitations of these endeavors. He has admitted in interviews that the band's future cannot be guaranteed by appealing solely to nostalgia. "You have to keep going if you want to be remembered," he said. Adapting to a dynamic and unpredictable world calls for fresh ideas and calculated actions, as the Beatles' dedication to progress shows. Nevertheless, they face an uphill battle, and it is yet uncertain if their enduring impact will be felt by decades to come. The Beatles' legacy is in danger in today's rapid and transient cultural environment, according to Ringo Starr, despite their continuous attempts to stay relevant. The ever-shifting habits of music listeners constitute one of the most significant threats. Modern music consumption habits are shifting, with younger generations increasingly favoring quick, popular songs on sites like TikTok over the in-depth exploration of whole albums that the Beatles helped establish. Ringo, the gangster, has also brought up the fact that there is now an excessive amount of content to compete with due to the surge in music accessibility, which is both a blessing and a curse. The abundance of music available today was something he brought up in an interview with Rolling Stone. In this crowded world, it's hard to ignore the Beatles in the hopes that someone may stumble upon them. Under the steady deluge of information, this excess threatens to obscure even monumental accomplishments. The potential loss of historical context is another obstacle. The Beatles flourished in an environment that welcomed their revolutionary contributions to music, recording, and popular culture. The groundbreaking elements of albums like Sgt. Pepper's or Revolver may not strike a chord with listeners who aren't familiar with its historical relevance, though because of how easy it is to create complex music now that technology has advanced. Furthermore, hazards may also be posed by shifting cultural narratives. More and more, the Beatles' actions and statements, viewed through a critical contemporary perspective, are being scrutinized as society values change. Although these kinds of conversations are vital, they have a tendency to eclipse the band's overall creative value. The dispersed character of contemporary fandom further muddles the transmission of the Beatles' legacy, which Ringo has alluded to subtly while stressing harmony and optimism. Personalized music bubbles are a common result of digital platforms, in contrast to generations past, when parents and elder siblings passed down recordings or performance experiences. The Beatles risk being completely forgotten by subsequent generations unless they are consciously introduced to them. It is a fine line to walk, as Ringo points out, between updating a legacy for contemporary audiences and losing sight of its core values. Losing the band's distinctive sound in a rapidly evolving music industry is just as dangerous as fading into oblivion. Ringo Starr, at 84 years old, isn't about to sit on the sidelines and let the Beatles' legacy rest on its laurels. On the contrary, he is still pushing for measures that will keep the band in the public eye for years to come. His strategy centers on staying true to the band's values, while also connecting with fans and embracing new media. Ringo sees reaching out to new demographics in ways that are relevant in the modern media landscape as an important component of his mission. A 2019 interview with Billboard quoted him as saying, "You've got to meet people where they are," highlighting his belief in the significance of adapting to changing cultural norms and technological capabilities. Documentaries, streaming collections, and cartoons, like the reimagined Yellow Submarine, are all part of his ideology, which explains why he is receptive to them. Additionally, Ringo has advocated for the preservation of the Beatles story through educational means. Programs that teach students about music history. More prevalent, from collegiate curricula to community-based projects, including the revolutionary impact of the Beatles. These endeavors guarantee that the band's work is contextualized in history by directly linking their accomplishments to cultural and musicological relevance. The promotion of the love and unity message that the Beatles included into their music is another aspect of his vision. Their songs were more than simply words, as Ringo has stressed again and time again in interviews and on stage. Societal statements they were. According to what he told The Guardian in 2020, our message is straightforward: love and peace. Both it and the people who use it are timeless. Whenever I play, that is what I concentrate on. Their music's themes remain relevant, even as societal standards change, because to this motto, Ringo considers collaboration as an ongoing strategy alongside his personal platforms. Collaborations can preserve and update the band's music, as seen with Paul McCartney's participation with Kanye West and the continuing projects involving the Beatles' families, including Donny Harrison's contributions to archival works. Future musical and multimedia collaborations, in Ringo's opinion, can help bring the Beatles' sound to new fans all around the world while also preserving its essence. Nostalgia isn't the point, but accepting change is, according to Ringo Starr. Although Ringo concedes that we can't predict how future generations will view the Beatles, he never stops stressing one eternal hope: that their music will continue to unite people, just like it always has. Ringo Starr acknowledges the inherent uncertainty in cultural legacies, but he is enthusiastic about the possibility of keeping the Beatles' impact alive.